pasta.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, you've got a big swim team.
We do.
Yeah, great. Are you guys in season right now, kind of, or?
Yeah.
When's the championship meet? Oh, just getting started. Well, I've been here all day or for a couple hours, and I don't have any big message, but if you guys have any questions, you probably do, maybe. I don't know if you want to ask any, or...
Can I ask the first question?
You ask.
So there are not many of us who, when they were 16, were world champions and Olympic gold medalists and world record holders. But I've read that you were very involved with your high school team.
Yes.
And maybe you could just discuss what that was like, being in both worlds.
Yeah. I swam all 4 years of high school. I went to the 2012 Olympics for between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. But I still came back and swam with my high school team, and we had a lot of fun. I have so many really great friends from my high school swim team, and it really contributed kind of to the balance that I was able to strike between swimming and school. Having a high school swim team to be a part of was a lot of fun for me, and a way to interact with my classmates in an activity that I loved to do, and was kind of one of my big kind of high school activities. You guys have questions? Yeah.
What's the hardest set you've ever done?
Let's see. Last Thursday I did like half of a 4 IM set, and then I did 10 200s on 1 on 2 minutes. This is short course. 1 on 2 minutes, 1 on 158, 1 on 2 minutes, 1 on 156, 1 on 2 minutes, 1 on 154, 1 on 2 minutes, 1 on 152, 1 on 2 minutes, 1 on 150. Like the last couple, I had to be under 150 basically. So that was a good one. I've done plenty of 3000s for time, and sometimes the more intense, high quality sets turned out to be the harder ones. Yeah.
What was your fastest time in freestyle 100?
Short course?
Short course, yeah.
I think it's 48. Yeah.
What goes into mentally preparing for competition, especially like I would assume the Olympics are really like you get really stressed out before. Like, how do you deal with all of the emotion and stuff?
Yeah, I try to visualize and stay calm. I always tell the story of London when I was at it was the Olympics, it was my first international competition. It was really just a big deal that I was there, and I was just happy to be there. I was really nervous for my prelims race, and once I got through that, I turned my focus towards my finals race, and at that point I was feeling good, and I was just like, I'm at the Olympics, I just made the finals at the Olympics, now it's just kind of time to have fun. But at the same time, I tell the story of how I always, when I was visualizing my race before that finals race, I always visualized myself winning gold. I think a lot of swimmers talk about how they visualize their best possible race and their worst possible race and everything in between of, what if my goggles fall off, or what if I forget my credential, or what if I slip on the starting block, or something like that. But I just, for some reason, visualized myself winning gold. And when I dove in, it was just kind of like it was meant to be, and I had rehearsed it in my head so many times that I was able to do that. I've been lucky that I've had some good performances that have created a lot of adrenaline, and that's usually what carries me through. From a mental perspective, it becomes pretty easy.
So from my understanding from a young age, you've always been quite successful in swimming. And so when you kind of think about the daily aspect of your life, did you always swim with that, even in practice or competitions, did you always swim with that chip on your shoulder, kind of feeling like you had something in the future, or were there ever times in which you kind of had a hard time seeing maybe the light at the end of the tunnel, and then if so, like, was there any lack of motivation at any point there?
Yeah, I was telling them earlier today, I never dreamed of making the Olympics. A lot of Olympians today say that when they first started swimming that they dreamed of going to the Olympics. That was never me. I thought you had to be some superhero and thought it was so far-fetched and there's no way I'm ever doing that. There's no way I'm ever getting to that point. But I just started qualifying for bigger and bigger meets, and eventually the next meet to qualify for was Olympic trials. And it was really only until that moment that I started realizing what it took to make the Olympic team. So it's just been a process, and I think you have to take each day one step at a time and not get too caught up in the far-fetched goal and the end result when you're going through the process, and trying to set those short-term goals that will continue to motivate you on a day-to-day basis. I've never had an extended period of time where I've felt a lack of motivation or discouraged. Certainly there are bad practices here and there. Like that set I mentioned earlier, that was a great practice for me, but on another day, the same week, it could be a bad practice, and I have to get over it quickly so that I can have those good practices. And you just have to rebound and get to the next practice and give your best effort.
What's your training schedule?
Okay, so I swim 10 times a week. So I swim twice on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and once on Wednesdays, once on Saturdays, and I have Sundays off. And then I do weights after morning practice on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You first, then you. Yeah.
Okay, on your Sunday off, like what do you do? Do you ice? Or what do you just do even like with activities with yourself? Like,
Yeah, I try to relax. I go to mass, I do laundry, I get a massage. That's kind of like my recovery day that I have that set up. Try to hang out with friends, get lunch or dinner with a friend, and just kind of take some time to myself. Sometimes if I have a busy week or something, I try to just keep it very low key.
How has your training in college versus after college been different or similar?
Yeah, so I'm still training at Stanford. I turned professional after 2 years of swimming collegiately, and so I've still been able to train with the team, and my schedule is still pretty similar. There are a couple mornings a week where I'm not swimming with the college team, still with my coach, but it's just kind of a small group of a couple of us that are professional now. So yeah, they swim 9 times a week and a couple different practices, but for the most part, I still train with them, and it's a pretty similar schedule. Question?
Like, was your mind like wandering around on like certain different thoughts when you were training for the Olympics?
I always have a lot of different things going on in my life, that, apart from just swimming, and so yeah, there are certainly practices that I have where I'm thinking about an exam or something else I have to do that day. And it's been really good to have kind of a balance in my life where it's not just swimming, and I take my schoolwork very seriously, and I'm very committed to that.
Or how do you balance like all of this really rigorous like morning practices and all this practices with schoolwork? Like when I go to after morning practice, I'm like dead for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I try to get as much sleep as I can. I go to bed early, and I take naps during the day, and I try to work ahead on my schoolwork. So I would always try to look ahead as much as I could and hunker down on some weekends, especially if I knew I had a swim meet coming up. I would maybe be busier a certain week than others. I would try to get some extra reading done ahead of time, or just kind of look ahead so that I knew I was getting it done and being able to get to bed early so that I could wake up at 4 a.m. and not fall asleep during class.
What do you think of doing like long sets of like practices? Like you were saying, like you do like 3,000 sets. Like what do you think of doing those sets?
Yeah, it kind of varies day to day. sometimes I'll have a song stuck in my head, or sometimes I'll be racing a teammate, and that's kind of distracting, or you can kind of play games almost in your head sometimes. You kind of have to break down those sets, I think. Do you guys have experience with that? You kind of, you start counting down almost like how much you have left, or you tell yourself when you're gonna kind of change speeds, whether you're gonna make a move at a certain point in the set. Kind of hype yourself up. I do that in races a lot. I would say that's kind of my self-talk. It's like, all right, yeah, it's time to go, or I'm gonna hit this turn. Things like that. Yeah.
Growing up, did you have like any role models for swimming, like somebody you looked up to?
Yeah, I am from Bethesda, Maryland, Washington, D.C. area, and there were a lot of fast swimmers. There are some Olympians that I was lucky enough to get to watch firsthand. Kate Ziegler, she was a distance swimmer. Katie Hoff, Michael Phelps are from Maryland. So got to kind of see them swim firsthand, which was really impactful. There were a couple Olympians from past years on my actual team, and so they sometimes came back and talked to us. So yeah, I always enjoyed watching older swimmers compete and trying to emulate them.
What's the coolest stroke and why?
Freestyle, 'cause you can do anything, right?
A lot of people don't know what a great relay swimmer you are.
Oh,
And that,
thank you.
Yeah, and we would like to emphasize relays on this team. And could you talk about, you know, what do you think of your relays as opposed to like your individual events, and how do you prepare for each? So.
Yeah, I think I've never had trouble getting excited for relays because you're doing it for your team, and you know it has a lot more impact, I guess, when you're swimming for a medal for 3 or 4. You know, at the Olympics there are people that swim on the prelims relay, and then they swap out some people for the finals relay. So it's potentially 6 or 7 people that you're swimming for, and you have that opportunity to win a medal for all those people, and kind of changes how you look at things. And just getting to represent your country and not just your own name is a super big honor and privilege. And yeah, I never have trouble getting excited for those things. The adrenaline just is through the roof, and you're doing something as a unit. I love anchoring relays because I get to watch the 3 other swimmers before me do their thing, and it's usually very inspiring, the performances we're able to put together as a team. And yeah, so I'm working towards hopefully being on a relay this summer. You know, it's more also, it's not just the other swimmers that you're swimming with on that relay, it's also the swimmers that have been on that relay in years past. The U.S. has a great tradition of winning gold medals in relays, and we put a top priority on that year after year, and so we want to kind of continue that legacy of you know, winning certain relays, and we take a lot of pride in that.
Other than your races in Tokyo,
Yes.
Is there any other events or experiences you're looking forward to in Japan?
Yeah, so I've been to Tokyo once before for a meet 2 years ago, and it's an incredible city, so I'm hoping to get around a little bit and see more of Tokyo. That's something I feel so lucky I've been able to do, is get to travel the world through swimming. Again, never imagined I would have that opportunity, so I've actually never really had the opportunity at an Olympics to get to go to watch other sports and watch other athletes compete. So I'm hoping this time around that I'll be able to do that.
Everybody ready?
Oh!